I guess you can't tell if we're live. Okay.
Yeah, we are live. I
Well,
see it.
welcome everyone to another Facebook Live with DrNelva
Hello.
Bryant. This is
Yeah.
a special edition as we are going live on Monday, April the 14th. And we have a special guest with us from PetKey to help us learn so much more about microchipping. But before we get started with that, let me introduce you to Dr. Bryant. Dr. Bryant, if you could introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Bryant, Nelva Bryant. I am a veterinarian and I work in the airline industry. I'm in a remote location in my vehicle today. Just wanted to have some private time to actually be able to share. So I'm not in my office. I'm actually in the parking lot in my car enjoying the sun today. It's a beautiful day in Atlanta. As I said, I'm Dr. Bryant. I'm a veterinarian. I work in the airline industry. I do work for Delta Airlines. I'm on staff to help review and revise the policies for animal transportation. And we have been doing it, Greta. We have been doing plenty of Facebook Lives to introduce different stakeholders in the animal transportation industry. And there's all different features, all that relate to transporting animals. And that's what we try to do is bring on guests to share their sector and their expertise in certain areas. So that's what we've been doing for this good, oh gosh, almost 4 years now. So that's who I am. Greta, introduce yourself and we'll get it moving.
Hi, everyone. I am Greta Russo, and I help Dr. Bryant with the marketing and messaging and setting up these wonderful opportunities. You know, we've introduced you to so many people in the animal transportation sector and even outside of that. Because it takes all types of people from different angles to make sure that our different animals and our pets are able to travel in a healthy, safe
Mhm.
way. And I'm so excited. After 4 years, we've never had a microchipping company with
No,
us.
we haven't. And I really
No.
feel that we should be connecting with it more. So I'm very excited
Yeah.
about this event with Pet Key, because, as you said, we need to be connecting more with microchipping companies because microchipping your pet, uh, well, I'll say, and I believe, I don't remember the exact dates, but in honor of National Pet ID Week, we would say that microchipping is a main thing you need to do for your pets. It serves numerous purposes. As far as microchipping, number one, routinely, if your pet gets lost, you want to be able to retrieve it quickly. And God forbid they lose their collar or their ID tag or something like that. Now you have a kind of a way to still identify that pet as being yours. So that's extremely important to have in microchip. And then also for traveling internationally and to Hawaii. Believe it or not, when I say believe it or not for Hawaii, because of the fact that it is the U.S., but being that it's an island, um, they have additional requirements when you're traveling to Hawaii, and having a microchip is something that's needed. So definitely, we need to connect with more microchipping companies to discuss the necessity behind them and the specifics behind them for transportation purposes. But either way, in honor of National Pet ID Week, this is why this is so important to share this information today.
So you mentioned the island of Hawaii. What about Puerto Rico?
Um, there are additional requirements going to Puerto Rico, Guam, or other U.S. territories, and including Hawaii. I don't remember if Puerto Rico requires a health certificate, but just be aware, if you're traveling outside the continental US, there will be additional requirements when you're transporting pets and other animals as well. So just be mindful of that.
Well, you know, having a microchip when you're traveling is a must because other countries require it and a specific type, which we'll get into later.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, the worst thing is, you know, you've heard firsthand how owners will say, "Oh, my dog is obedient; he won't go nowhere." Well, you
Right.
know, if there's a gunshot, if there's an
Oh,
explosion, if there's something, if just another dog has, you know, approaches from, you know, an angry disposition, any animal is going to take off because the fight or flight will kick in. They're not
right.
going to stay there. And,
Right.
God forbid your pet get lost in another country. What are you going to do?
Um, that would be
So,
that would be devastating. That will be devastating to just how do you get them back? I mean, so it's so scary. It's best to have them for that, like I said, for travel purposes. And as you mentioned, routine things, 4th of July, all these celebrations with fireworks. That's when they get out and get loose and run because these noises they're not familiar with. I mean, a lot of pets unfortunately have anxiety. They have phobias to these loud noises, so they run. So having them microchipped prior to all of these events, just as a safety precaution to help you be reunited with your pet, is extremely important.
yeah, absolutely. So, this is a great opportunity, the perfect time of the month to speak with a company, not only to learn about them and what they offer, but, really, this is a great educational opportunity for people to learn about the importance of microchipping. And
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, here in the US, we don't take it that serious. Whether pet parents just don't get it or they get it and then they don't even register the
Register.
information.
I know.
Like,
Yeah. You got to keep that information updated. If you move, change phone numbers or what have you, you need to keep it updated so that you can be reunited with your pet, just in case. So,
yeah,
that's
absolutely. I mean, we have at least in this country, we have wherever you live, there are natural disasters. And I think people have to remember in the United States, I was shocked when I found this out. So let's say your pet does get rescued by someone. Well, guess what? Those places are only obligated to keep your pet for 4 days. And after that, they can rehome your pet. So if your pet does not have a microchip, your pet is gone and
yeah.
there's nothing you can do about it.
I can tell you years ago when I was in the United States Public Health Service and we responded to Hurricane Katrina. It was a bunch of veterinarians and other sectors of the public health service that deployed to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. As far as the veterinary officers, we were focusing on helping to take care of all the displaced pets during that time frame. And trust me, there was this huge horse arena in Baton Rouge where we set up like a makeshift animal shelter there. And I was happy because I was actually my role was helping to reunite pets and with their owners. But we were going based upon photos, and a photo alone may not do it. I mean, of course, if the pet recognizes the pet owner, and they were only there for a short period of time, so there was a lot of dogs that were shipped out of that region and probably never ever were reunited with their pet owners at that
Yeah.
time because microchipping wasn't the big deal. That wasn't what was done. And that time frame, I'm sure there was a lot of people that lost their pets during that time frame based upon that disaster. So
Yeah.
we can learn from where we were. We've been through things before in the past. Now we can do better. Microchipping really for identification purposes. It should be mandatory, or you should feel that it's a mandatory thing you do for your pet.
Absolutely. Well, I will say this, if you adopt, and you should adopt from a reputable rescue, they automatically do it.
Mhm.
And I think that's amazing because if you've never thought about it before, you're adopting with a cat or dog that has all their vaccinations and they're microchipped. So it's already done. All you have to do is keep it up to date.
Right.
So that's really important. So let's find out more. Let's bring Emma Webb and Iris Felix from PetKey in so that we can learn more about microchipping and definitely their country. So let's see, let's
Perfect.
bring Emma in and let's add Iris. There we go. Hi,
Hello,
ladies.
hello.
Hi,
You
how are we?
Good, good. Now, before we
good?
get started, because I'm sure there's so much you want to share, I'm going to read your bio real quick and then we will get started with the questions. So, everyone, PetKey simplifies the process of reuniting lost pets with their families through microchip technology and a nationwide registration database. A microchip registration links the pet owner's details to their a microchip registration links the pet owner's details to their pet's microchip. Without doing this, the microchip remains blank, and when scanned, the owner cannot be contacted. They partner with breeders, veterinarians, shelters, and pet owners across the country, providing reliable tools and education that support responsible pet ownership. With millions of pets already registered and successfully reunited, PetKey are dedicated to protecting the connection between pets and the people who love them. Everyone, please help us welcome Iris and Emma from PetKey.
Welcome, welcome,
I
ladies.
love our applause.
Hi, ladies. That's pretty cool. I like that.
That was good.
How are
Welcome,
you?
ladies. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm looking forward to getting into a deep conversation with you guys of really about PetKey, the importance of microchipping. I know I shared some of it, but there's more features I'm sure, and there's details actually that we didn't touch upon. So I'm glad you're both here to share that information with us.
Thank you. Thank
Amazing.
you for having
Well,
us.
Emma and Iris, please introduce yourself to everyone, and also PetKey.
So, okay, my name's Emma Webb. I am the marketing manager for PetKey. And just to give a little bit of background as to how we're here and why we're here. So our CEO is Lisa Hunter, and she was also the CEO of a number of databases over here in the UK. So a lot of our industry knowledge and how we've come about is kind of from our UK knowledge. And over in the UK, it's very different. Microchipping is mandatory in the UK for dogs and now for cats as well. So every pet must have a microchip. That microchip must be registered to that owner, and those details must be kept up to date as well. For dogs, that's been mandated since April 2016, so almost 10 years now. So it's been a long time, and I can tell you now that I think in the UK, I think it's about 90% of dogs are now microchipped and registered, which is massive, obviously, compared to in the US. Mm-hmm. And the benefits of that we've seen from the before and after is absolutely phenomenal, just in terms of reunification, in terms of identification, in terms of the pressure that shelters feel, that vets feel, obviously the influx of pets not being able to be reunited with their owners, and that microchip either not being there, or the fact that it is there, but it's just not registered to that owner, so there's no contact details to be found. So what I like to do is apply, obviously, this knowledge to the US market and what's going on here. And Nelva, you were right, and Greta also, just in the fact that it's an education piece, right? It's a lot of people aren't aware of the consequences, and sometimes a microchip isn't registered until the pet is lost and until that consequence has happened. And at that point, the pet owner will then think, oh my goodness, this microchip needs to be registered. If someone scans this chip, I want my contact details to come up. So it's almost getting in front of that audience prior to this, before this, so that we can have that microchip in place and that registration as well. So that's just a little bit of background. I'll hand over to Iris and she can introduce herself.
Hello, I am Iris. I have been with PetKey now for going on 11 years in September. I am a team leader at the call center here at PetKey, and we handle a lot of pet owners wanting to register their pets. We also assist with reunification. So we get lots of calls from pet professionals like animal control officers, veterinary shelters, rescues, with lost pets and wanting to get or needing to get owners' contact information. We also assist with pet owners and their lost pets. You know, they call frantic, crying, you know, they lost their pet, and we jump right in and assist with issuing missing pet alerts for those pets. Like Emma said, you know, a huge part of what we do here at Pet Key is we really try to educate pet owners on the importance of microchipping. I find that there's a lack of education when it comes between a pet professional and pet owners. You know, they get chipped, but there's not really a lot of education going on when it comes to, you know, now this is the chip, this is how it works, this is how it functions, this is what you need to do in order to get it registered, this is the importance. All of the misconceptions that are out there, you know, for example, pet owners thinking that microchips are a GPS.
Yes.
You know, that's,
Yeah.
we all know that's not a thing.
Right.
And the fact that they think that still, you know, that's, to me, there's a lack of education going on between pet professionals and pet owners. So yeah, that's a little bit of what we do here at Pet Key. I love it, and I love that we get to help pets, you know, get reunited with their owners.
Yeah. That's really good. I'm just going to tail off something you said there. There's that the education piece is really, really needed. I
Yeah.
happened to be out the other day trying to get content together regarding microchipping and for, you know, National Pet ID Week. And I was surprised when I asked an individual with this beautiful, beautiful black German Shepherd. You don't see that breed that often. They're gorgeous dogs.
Yeah.
And he was walking with them, and I got his attention. And of course, I had to just clarify that I am not trying to hit on you, sir. I'm just trying to ask you a question. I'm a veterinarian. I'm trying to get content. And
Yeah.
I was asking, is your dog microchipped? And he said, no. And then I said, oh, okay. And he was going to just walk off. And I said, well, sir, do you know, can I share with you the reason why you should? And I shared, of course, you know, ID. What if he gets lost? I said, what if, that's a beautiful dog, if he gets lost and everything? And his comeback was, oh, his dog stays nearby if he's off leash.
And that's such a common response.
Yes.
Such a common response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people get comfortable in that. That's the worst part.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
not realizing, I don't think people thoroughly realize that this live animal next to you has their own mind. And certain natural things will overset or precede anything that they were taught. And that's for all of us. When we all get stressed, when we all get scared, we revert to our natural form. And some people it's fight, and some people it's flight.
Yeah.
So, you know, your dog is going to take off when it hears a loud bang.
Absolutely. And, you know, I always try to apply my personal experiences. You know, we're human, we make mistakes, you know, accidents happen. I had a dog once. We had a lot of a gathering at our home, and someone accidentally left the front door open, and out she went. You know, I like to think of myself as a responsible pet owner. But it was an accident. It was a mistake, and she went out. And because of the microchip, I was able to get her back.
That's so good.
So I always like to share my personal experience with people. And yeah, you know, we all want to be responsible. But, you know, you said something, Greta, earlier, like, what if there's a gunshot or a loud boom or something? You know, their natural instincts is going to be hunt, run and hide, and, you know, they can go missing.
Yeah. I wanted to ask something from Iris, from what you said. You mentioned that you guys put out a missing pet alert.
Yes.
Is that the same as an Amber Alert that we have here in the United States, and a broadcast is across your TVs?
Yeah, so when I describe it, I say it's very much like an Amber Alert service, but for pets. So our our alert service is it's an email blast that goes out within a 25-mile radius, and it would go out to registered pet owners and pet professionals in the area that are signed up with Pet Key. So they'll receive those alerts, and they also have the ability to print off a poster that's already generated in their account, so they don't have to worry about, you know, creating a poster and putting it out there. They can share that poster on social media platforms. And yeah, it's just a blast that goes out with a picture of the pet, a description, and to please call, Pet Key with any information.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
And I wanted to ask Emma a question from something that you said. So is Pet Key only available in the UK, or is that, or can your services go to other countries?
Pet Key is the US. Pet Key
Oh.
service is the US. Yeah, it's not UK. So the UK databases we used to be involved with are different databases. Pet Key is Pet Key is the US.
Okay.
That's amazing. Okay. Well, let's get into your questions, or we can ask a gazillion of our own. Let's see. Why is microchipping essential for traveling pets?
Is that a question for us?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you want to take that, Emma, or you want me to?
I'm happy, yeah. So not only there's two reasons microchipping is essential. One is for the identification of the pet, and the second is reunification. So identification in that the processes, I can imagine, obviously Nelva being the expert, to get that pet from A to B, they need to be identified and know that that microchip is registered to that owner at either ends of the travel, depending on where that person is going. It would be good to know from our perspective, once answered, what the differences are between domestic and international. But of course, identification is purpose number one, and reunification is purpose number two. Like we said, there's so many reasons that a pet can, we said obviously, fight or flight, or what happens depending on their surroundings. It's different surroundings. It's the unknown. If a pet is traveling for the first time, they're not going to understand their surroundings. They're going to act in a different way. So that reunification method, by having that microchip, number one being in place and number two being registered to that owner, should anything happen and they need to be reunified, that's the other reason. So yeah, for both identification and reunification purposes, for sure.
I'll jump in with the other. As far as for traveling, though, for again saying internationally, leaving the United States and internationally, and also, like I said, Hawaii, all pets must be microchipped, and they want it to be an ISO compatible microchip with 15 digits, I believe. So you've got to make sure they have that specific type of microchip that folks need to be aware of and understand that feature too. Because I was saying on another session that it's amazing. I went on Amazon, and you can buy microchips on Amazon, which blows me away, but they may not be ISO compatible. So you have to pay attention to that for folks and everything. So there's specific requirements. Traveling internationally, domestically, that's a different ballpark. It's not required, but going out of the country, and actually the new thing, actually with CDC's regulations, they are requiring dogs coming into the United States to have a microchip, and it should be ISO compatible as well. So again, identification purposes, extremely important. I could take it an extra step too, because in your country too, Emma, I know we had someone from London sharing that you're saying all dogs have to be registered. You register them first and then give the rabies vaccination either the same day or after being registered, because if not, that rabies vaccination is not valid. And that's a feature that's extremely important for folks to understand and know that here in the US, if your dog was given a rabies vaccination before the microchip being provided, the ISO compatible microchip being provided, they'll have to receive another rabies vaccination at either the same day of the microchip being implanted or after. So again, and that's for traveling internationally. So folks have to understand that too. So it's upsetting to some, I'm sure, pet owners getting ready to travel out of the country, and they say my dog is current on his vaccines, but then lo and behold, they have to learn that now they have to be revaccinated for certain things to meet the requirements of that destination country. So it's very interesting.
And I believe Hawaii, they have to sit through a quarantine, right? Like a period of quarantine?
Well, they have to do a rabies titer too, and that might take a while to get all done. Quarantine, it all depends now. If they don't have all these requirements in there, they will be sitting in quarantine in Hawaii because they didn't meet those, they didn't do it in advance. So they may have a quarantine period, but it's a shorter period if they make all the qualifications prior to going to Hawaii.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Are there different guidelines for microchipping for domestic and international?
Who wants that one? Yeah.
I think that's more for Nelva. I don't know what the different guidelines would be.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, the microchip is not required for domestic travel unless you're going out of the continental U.S. to Hawaii. Then it's required. But within the continental U.S., microchipping is not a requirement for travel at this stage as far as regulations. If anything, if traveling by cargo or crossing state, traveling by cargo, it's required to have a health certificate. Going between states, technically, you're supposed to have a health certificate too. I always say the health certificate is almost like us with our license. You don't leave home without it. If you leave in the state, for the pets leaving the state, they should have it. But I'll be honest with you, a lot of pet owners aren't doing it. A lot of veterinarians aren't following up with that. But imagine if you're going to another state, the state officials do want to know that there's another animal coming in and be aware of their being in their regulatory authority.
And PetKey offers pet ID. They look just like driver's license. They have the dog's pictures on it, and as long as the pet owner lists their updated vaccinations, those vaccinations will also be on the identification card.
That's nice.
So when they are traveling, like you said, state to state, that's something that they can easily pull out of their wallet, and it'll have all of the pet's information, including the vaccinations.
Yeah,
as well.
That's a great touch, because imagine you leave the state and you don't have documentation of a rabies vaccination or something for your pet, or your dog or cat, and then lo and behold, there's a bite or something, and you need that documentation, because if your dog or cat bites someone, their first thought is going to put it in a quarantining to make sure they don't have rabies if you don't provide documentation that he's vaccinated and current on rabies vaccination. So big risk there. So yeah, having that information is really important to travel with pets. So that's a great touch for PetKey.
Yeah, that's something we do offer.
Does this differ by airline, country?
As far as the microchipping requirement, again, the airline has not, well, let's see. Leaving the country, the airline is not involved with that. I mean, as far as if it's microchipped or not, what the airline wants to ensure is that the animals meet the requirements of that destination. So they'll be checking the international health certificate or something like that for that pet. But I don't believe it's at a level where someone's scanning and checking the microchip to ensure that that pet corresponds to the health certificate, international health certificate. That's not happening at this point, leaving the country. Coming into the country, CDC is requiring all dogs to be microchipped. No one is scanning, but they're just following what's on the documentation. That's like there's an import permit and other documentation from CDC must have the right microchip number on it. But at this stage, no one in the airline industry is scanning to ensure that that is the correct pet, which, reality is it could be falsified. Unfortunately, it could be.
Yeah.
But we're not at a level as far as I just think technology and advancing. That's kind of going to be requiring the airline industry to do more on that aspect, and I don't think we're there yet.
So we do get calls.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. We do get calls from customers traveling, pet owners, and they do ask, what are the requirements for traveling with my pet? That's not our expertise, but the advice that I give them is, if they're traveling domestically, to contact the airline and see what their rules and regulations are.
Right.
Would that be the right thing to say to them? Because I would imagine every airline is different. Every country is different in terms of
perfect, Iris, for when you're traveling in the continent within the United States. Basically, it's going to be domestic travel, and you really main thing is comply with the airline policies.
Right.
When you're traveling internationally, you have to consider that country you're going to and the airline policy. So there's two things you must comply with in reference to that. So all I could tell them is folks is need advanced preparation whenever you're traveling domestically or internationally. Internationally, of course, is going to take longer to get prepared and everything. But again, folks need to realize as you mentioned, every airline can be different on their requirements. I mean, what Delta does compared to American Airlines or United does, totally different policies. And you need to be aware of that and just not assume that it's the same across the board, unfortunately.
And not wait to the last minute to find out either.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect.
Over prepare.
Yeah. That's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Let's see. Our next question is, if a pet owner takes a pet to another country, do they need to register it in that country?
So yes, microchip registration is not international. It is a national registry. So if they are planning to move to a different country, they do have to contact registry out there and register their pets.
Okay, so you're saying that PetKey is only a national registry to the United States, but if you move to Paris, if you move to Paris, you got to register your. So is it a unilateral type of, like, wouldn't you need to get that new country's microchip, or can you keep the one you got with PetKey?
So that's where the ISO compliance comes in.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but I know for sure microchip registration is a national registry. So, if you are planning to move to a different country, I always advise pet owners to contact their local vets in that country, and they would be knowledgeable in, what microchipping system or a company that they would have to reach out to register their pets. And Emma, you may know more about this being,
So I would also add to that. Yes, obviously in terms of registration is going to be different depending on where you are, what country you're in, and it needing to be registered in another database. What I think is probably a good time to bring this up is that a pet does not need to be re-microchipped. And I think that's another common myth I think that some people hold, is that, okay, I've traveled or I've gone somewhere else, I now need to get my pet re-chipped and then register that chip. That's obviously going to cause, I guess, a counter effect in that when if that pet is re-chipped and it goes missing and it's scanned at a local vet's, then who knows which chip that vet is going to pick up. So re-chipping a pet is a no-go. It's just the registration on that chip that has to be edited or changed or re-registered in another country. And another myth is that a microchip should at some point be removed and replaced. Again, a microchip does not need to be removed. It's just the registry and registration attached to that microchip that needs to be changed. So two things there. A pet does not need to be re-chipped. It should never have more than one microchip. And unless for medical reasons or a vet has said so that a microchip needs to be removed, then a microchip should remain in the pet and just the registration changed as well.
Right. You know what I want to add on that again. You won't need to be, again, that's why it's important to make sure it's an ISO compatible microchip that's being implanted, because that's an international standard. And I forget international standard organization maybe, but it's standard internationally. So it can be recognized by the microchip readers in any country because the international standard is being met. So that's the extremely important thing. In instances where pets are re-microchipped, it's when the initial microchip is not ISO compatible, and then they'll have to re-microchip with another one that is. So you might have two on them, but it's done for that purpose, for traveling. And again, traveling internationally and meeting the standards, it's extremely important. But I definitely agree with you. You don't have to re-microchip just because I'm moving to London and I have to do another one, microchip for my pet. No, as long as it's an ISO compatible microchip, it will be perfectly fine in reference to that and everything. So I've never heard any veterinarian going in surgically to remove the microchips. They're so small. Never heard of a situation like that.
And they may migrate sometimes, you know,
Yes, they
depending
do.
on how long it's been
Yes,
in
they
there.
do.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. And just to clarify, that's if if you and your pet move to a new country. That has nothing to do with travel.
No.
Okay.
No.
How often do airlines deal with lost pets, and how can microchips help?
We don't really, actually, to be honest with you, you can find that information. The United States Department of Transportation has it's an airline consumer report. And within there, you can look at the number of animal incidents that there are as far as an animal incident for pet traveling by cargo. It's going to be a injury, escape or loss, or death. And you can find that data. I've been reviewing that data since 2016, and I could tell you the number of losses. And I don't remember my exact number where I am as far as the numbers for that time frame. I didn't memorize that yet, but beforehand it was close to 2.7 million pets being transported. The number of losses were like maybe 2 or 3. I mean, very minimal times when it happens. Yes, there was something a good year ago. A dog got lost on airport grounds down here in Atlanta. Thank God he was retrieved. But those are kind of rare when that happens. Very rare events.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
What are consequences when these guidelines aren't followed?
As far as not microchipping them at all, or what are you thinking? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it would be good to know what happens for those people that are traveling with pets that don't prepare or are ill prepared, or they've only they haven't ticked all those boxes and they get to the point that where they're about to travel. What happens in that situation?
Yeah, well, you know what? If they don't microchip their pet and it's a requirement to enter a certain country for that pet to be microchipped, guess what? They're going to be denied entry. They will be denied entry because they don't have the microchip. And that would be and with denying entry, the worst thing they could either say your pet could be held in quarantine at your expense. And I don't know if they allow microchipping. Actually, to be honest with you, I think the alternatives of that, because they're not microchipped, would be returned back to the country of origin at your expense, for the pet owner's expense, or, I mean, hate to say it, humane euthanasia. The pet does not meet the requirements of that country, and they can be that stringent and say, "Hey, I don't want it here. It's no proof. You can't really." Even if your documentation says all the vaccines and everything was given, it's not microchip for them to prove that is the animal that received it. So that could be a reason to say,
identification point.
Yeah. Again, identification. I would say, how many black labs you think that they're, all black, and potentially, how many black labs could there be?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's
And I
the
think
importance of doing your research, well before you travel.
So all the things that are the requirements of going to your destination country to allow your pet to enter that country are extremely important for disease prevention in that country, number one. But they want to make sure whatever's coming in is not going to be a source of a disease outbreak, either with people with rabies or with dogs and cats with other communicable diseases that they may transmit. So yeah, extremely important. So, and again, that microchip portion is, how do I identify that animal? That animal actually received the vaccines or the diagnostic tests. If you don't have the microchip to prove it, because in those countries, they're going to scan the pets. They're going to scan them and make sure everything matches. If it doesn't match, that's not the same animal. It's going back to the country of origin, or hey, If they decide, they might say humane euthanasia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Severe consequences. And you think not only is that last chance saloon, but obviously that horrific consequence, but even if it doesn't come to that, the cost that can be incurred by the pet owner, but not even the cost, it's stress on the animal if they're quarantined and the longer time it's taken. Yeah, lots of consequences.
Right.
That's really interesting.
So this question, it says, well, get it to come up. What are the top 3 tips for safe pet travel? So, but let's take it from both. Instead of top 3, Dr. Bryant and I can definitely throw out our usual. But what are some tips that you ladies would like to provide to make sure microchipping provides safe pet travel?
I would say, do your research before you're traveling. Find out what you need to travel with your pet, whether it's domestic or international. Identification, like I said, we offer those identification cards for pet owners. I think that's really important to travel with. It has your pet's updated vaccinations listed on there. It has all of the owner's contact information, the pet's information with a picture. And just the third one, I would say, just, I don't know, just making sure that your pet is comfortable. It's very stressful on a pet to travel. So making sure that you're well prepared, you have plenty of food, treats, water, the proper carry bag or whatever it is that you're traveling with your pets with, just making sure that they're very, very comfortable so that it's not as stressful of being on a plane and being around so many people.
Yeah.
I think I'll add a couple more. The first one being, we've spoke a lot about the microchipping itself and obviously that microchip being registered, but it's also very common, I know we brushed upon it, is that it's to have those details up to date on that microchip, because it's great that you've registered it, but if you've registered your pup when it was a pup and the dog is now, I don't know, 7 years old and you've gone to travel, if you've changed your phone number, for instance, and it comes to a point where you need to be reunified at some point, then having those contact details up to date is going to be the difference between reunification or maybe not a reunification. So obviously just keeping those details up to date and making sure you're on top of them and that you're aware that you know who your pet is registered with. Is it registered with PetKey? When was the last time you updated or checked your details? So I think that's a good one. And then another one is check it, like we said, about checking the law depending on where you're going. Over in the UK, it's law to have an ID tag as well as the microchip and registration, and having that ID tag with the owner's name and number on it as well. That's law over here. So it's just checking what's law depending on where you're traveling to and what guidelines are in place that you need to follow and be aware of prior and in preparation to your travel.
Those are great tips.
Yeah, no, they're all great tips. My tips, I'm gonna just say some other separate things here, but I totally agree with both Emma and Iris. My thing is making sure that pet is medically fit for air travel, number one. A lot of times we forget about that one feature, that is my pet actually fit to travel? Is he okay? Should I be traveling with him? So those are questions you need to review with your veterinarian, review your pet's medical history and make sure that they're medically fit for air travel, number one. So that's my number one. Number two is, as far as comfort and everything, I want them to be comfortable. I want them in the appropriate size travel crate or container for them. And I also want that crate to be compatible with IATA's regulations. That's the International Air Transport Association, live animals regulations. They actually have the container requirements for all animal species. And for dogs and cats, it's container requirement number one. You want to make sure that crate is actually built to that standard. And you have to be careful because a lot of the crates on the commercial market in the US, not sure about where you are living, Emma, but in the US, they'll say that it's airline compliant, but they are not. They are. You need to make sure that they are comply with IATA, LAR, and you need to get that container requirement #1 and review that with the specifications so review the specifications and ensure the crate that you're choosing meets those requirements. Got to be careful because even on, gosh, I go to Amazon for everything, guys. Even on Amazon, they'll advertise crates as being IATA compliant, and they are not. They may have been at one time. IATA's requirements change on a yearly basis. They learn and improve upon their regulations on a yearly basis. So it may have been compliant back in 2010, but as of 2025, it is not. And it's more stringent, more sturdy, and have more safety features if you stay current with the IATA's regulations. So again, so correct size crate and IATA compliant. And then my third would be making sure they're acclimated to being confined in that travel crate. You can't get a crate the day before and put them in there and think they'll be perfectly fine. You have to make sure they're acclimated to being confined in that crate, and it could take sometimes a couple weeks to months. With cats being in the crate, it could take months for them to be comfortable being inside of it. You want the crate to be their safe haven and everything. So those are my three.
What is the determining factor of a pet being able to travel alongside their pet owners on a plane versus being stored in a cargo underneath the plane?
Yeah, that's going to be determined by the airline's policies. Number one, no longer since 2021, I believe, time frame, no more emotional support animals are allowed in cabin. So any pets you see in cabin are going to be the ones that are traveled as pet in cabin. They're in their soft-sided carrier. They fit in your foot space, basically, is where they're going to sit. And everything. So you have those in soft-sided carrier, and the other ones that are allowed in cabin are your service dog. You might see them with with their pet owner and everything that way. But so service dogs and pets in cabin. But again, research the airline policies in reference to that, because it varies by airline. But those are the ones that are going to be there. Now, going by cargo, if the dog is too large to fit in a soft-sided carrier, then he has to go by cargo.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Okay.
Ladies, I just wanted to add that pet parents, when they're getting the pet health certificates completed, it is a requirement to go to an accredited veterinarian. And in addition to that, I would, while they're doing the exam, have that veterinarian check to make sure the microchip is still working. You just want to have him scan it. And be at peace of mind that all of the information is actually coming up and all of the information is accurate. So I just wanted to add those couple of things.
Yeah.
I think it's good to know, you said about the microchip, and it's also good to know that it's still where it was placed, because we spoke about microchips migrating. All of PetKey's microchips are anti-migration. They have a paraline coating on them, so they are anti-migration. But if you have a dog that was chipped a long time ago, years and years ago, it's great to scan that dog and to make sure the microchip is where it was, or to find where it is at this present time, so that you're aware of that in preparation as well.
Fantastic. Let's see. I wanted to make sure that we acknowledged a few of our friends, not friends, but followers, and the comments that they made. So we had this one person who was saying, hello, Ayush Pawar. I'm from
Excellent.
LinkedIn.
Excellent.
And then also this person who checked in from Facebook, Alicia, oops, sorry about that. Alicia said that it's good information. So I'm glad to see that we have some viewers that have shared some comments with us and got some really good value out of all of this as well, which Iris and Alicia, this all was fantastic. I mean, we have to consider most people really don't know anything about microchips, and you guys have given us all a lot to think about and a lot to learn from. So thank you so much for coming on today. Do you have any last minute comments that you want to make before we get out of here? Dr. Bryant's got to go back to Delta.
No, just a massive thank you for having us. It would be great to do lots together, and just to make sure that your pet is microchipped, registered, and those details are up to date.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and give Pet Key a call if you need to get your pet registered. And education is such a huge part of this. Educating yourself, and just you're going to be better off. Your pet is going to be better off.
Yes.
Absolutely. Dr. Bryant, do you have any last minute words?
No, I'm so thankful for you both being here, Emma and Iris. Thank you so much for sharing everything about Pet Key and the conversation. I think we shared some valuable information for our listeners today.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
I'm very pleased.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? We definitely should do more together throughout the year, whether it's a Facebook Live or it's things on social media, because this is really important, and not just for this week. I think this is an education, and you guys know through marketing, repetition is key.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And pets are not what they used to be back in the day. Pets are now like our actual babies, right? Like these are our, we
part of the family.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I personally enjoyed all of this. I love to learn, so I'm so glad that you ladies were here. And I want to thank everyone. We had a lot of people here for a Monday at noon time that joined us today. So I want to thank all of them for joining, and we look forward to seeing you this Friday on our regular episode of Facebook Live with DrNelva Bryant. For now, enjoy the rest of your week, and we look forward to speaking to you later on at the end of the week. Everyone, have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.